Release the Kraken.
It will be biblical.
All right, so let's talk about Sidney Powell being fired from the Trump legal team. Welcome to the channel. My name is Nate the lawyer, YouTuber. If you are new here, don't forget to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel if you like what you hear. So let's get into it. So yesterday, I had an alert from Google about Fox News, and it said this. Rudy Giuliani says Sidney Powell is not part of the Trump legal team. Now, I had been told that Sidney Powell had 100% proof that there was election fraud, that this election was stolen from President Trump. Now, I'm one of the people who had hoped that these claims may have had something because of all the other claims that turned out to be BS. Don't believe me? Here's Fox News going over some of those claims.
The Trump campaign has said that they wanted to have their poll watchers there, and that I guess they're being asked to provide evidence for something that they say they weren't able to even participate in or to be able to see. And so that's, I think, where they would say that needs to be rectified, if it could be.
That's not true. It's not true. It's just not true. The election poll watchers, they are called canvass watchers. Republicans have been in this room, in that room, where they're supposed to be, standing alongside with the Democrats.
When they are talking the fraud issue and they are talking, irregularities, illegalities, what are they specifically referring to?
Neil, I think you're right on target. You see a lot of passion and a lot of anger, but you don't see any specific examples of where was the irregularity.
At this point, the president needs to win at least 3 recounts to even get to 270 or maybe tie it at 269. It's a really tough uphill battle.
To all you patriots who supported President Trump, stand tall and be proud of your efforts and his. It was all worth it. We all helped reshape the national conversation on China, on immigration, on trade, and political correctness, etc., etc. We don't have time to bury our heads in crying towels.
Now, a lot of my friends who are supporters of the president, when I would ask them, well, what evidence do you have of election fraud? Because it really don't seem like you have anything. They would always point me to Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell has the evidence.
Release the Kraken.
It will be biblical.
Matter of fact, here's Brandon Tatum, right? Here's one of his videos. Sidney Powell and Trump's legal team was on fire. Brandon Tatum. Remember when Tucker went after Sidney Powell saying she didn't have any evidence? He put up this video. Sidney Powell exposes Tucker as fake news. So we're all familiar with what we're talking about. Here's some clips of Sidney Powell making these claims on various cable news shows.
That electronic voting systems had somehow flipped millions of votes from Trump to Biden.
It can set and run an algorithm that probably ran all over the country to take a certain percentage of votes from President Trump and flip them to President Biden, which we might never have uncovered had the votes for President Trump not been so overwhelming in so many of these states that it broke the algorithm that had been plugged into the system.
Trump allegedly expressed concern after the conference that Powell's claims were too outlandish.
Let me ask you about the state of Georgia. Obviously yesterday, the governor there, he certified the election for Joe Biden. It's about 12,000 votes. And what you see, will Georgia switch?
Yeah, that's a total farce. Georgia's probably going to be the first state I'm going to blow up, and Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State need to go with it because they're in on the Dominion scam with their last-minute purchase or award of a contract to Dominion of $100 million. The State Bureau of Investigation for Georgia ought to be looking into the financial benefits received by Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State's family about that time. And another benefit Dominion was created to award is what I would call election insurance. That's why Hugo Chavez had it created in the first place. But I also wonder where he got the technology, where it actually came from, because I think it's hammer and scorecard from the CIA.
Just to clarify, you're saying that Governor Kemp, who's been a longtime ally of the president, is directly involved because of financial benefit in the conspiracy to defeat the president in Georgia?
We have certainly been told that there is evidence of that, and it would warrant an investigation if anybody were actually going to do an honest investigation.
What more could you tell us about that alleged conspiracy? Is the governor's involvement?
Yeah, I can't give you any more details than that now, but it would certainly warrant an investigation. If it had been reported to me as a law enforcement officer, I would be investigating it steadfastly.
Is because Sidney convinced everybody that she had super secret evidence that would prove it. And I kept telling people, nope, I know where this came from. I know what its origins are. I know what its connections are. I know enough about election law and elections, how elections work, that this is nonsense and will be easily disproven.
Number one, she was claiming Dominion voting machines were in places that didn't have Dominion voting machines. So Dominion voting machines couldn't have been responsible for bad votes in places they didn't even have voting machines at. So to fix that problem, she said that Dominion's competitor was also involved in this scheme. And Sidney was telling everybody that she had absolute proof that this was the biggest election fraud in the history of the planet. Here's Tucker saying it.
That was a few hours ago, but Sidney Powell has been saying similar things for days. On Sunday night, we texted her after watching one of her segments. What Powell was describing would amount to the single greatest crime in American history. Millions of votes stolen in a day. Democracy destroyed. The end of our centuries-old system of self-government. Not a small thing.
Now, as you guys know, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. One affidavit from a Venezuelan national who worked on an election 10 years ago for a president in Venezuela that's dead is not enough to convince me that all voting machines in the United States were rigged. I'm sorry, it's just not enough. Tucker Carlson called it out. My man Robert Barnes called it out. To circle the wagons on this, here is Dominion voting machines, that I think this is the president or whoever, explaining what happened and why Sidney Powell's claims are bull.
The first question, of course, the first question that people want to know, did a Dominion machine change one vote from Biden to Trump or from Trump to Biden?
No. This is a nonpartisan.
People watching you now, I mean, they don't believe you. They think you're lying. They're going to say, of course you're going to say Dominion's not guilty of anything because you represent the company.
Right. Well, I've got the facts on my side, and the president's attorneys will go on to press conferences, will go on TV and make these crazy allegations, and then 30 times they've gone to court, and they have not offered a scintilla of proof. So all I can say is until we would love to see any facts and evidence they have, thus far we have seen none.
The president calls your company a, quote, radical left company. The software created for Hugo Chavez to steal the election of Venezuela, that software allegedly imported into the United States to steal the election for Joe Biden. Is that true?
No. We are a nonpartisan American company. We have no connections with Venezuela whatsoever. Nothing that they're saying is remotely true.
Can a poll worker change the codes to vote for, steal the election for Joe Biden, for example?
No, because if they change the code, no matter what a poll worker does, and we're talking about elected officials, we're talking about nonpartisan poll watchers, the paper ballots wouldn't match the electronic record. Again, this is the gold standard of election security. We have printed paper ballots that the voter reviews showing how they voted, so that if we need to go back in a tightly contested race, as we have right now, we can do an audit, we can do a recount, we can physically match a printed ballot to a vote recorded by an electronic machine.
And that's called the paper trail. I mean, Sidney Powell is out there saying that the Democrats had 35,000 votes around the country. And when they had a hand recount in Georgia, the hand recount matched your machines, the Dominion machines. So let's say a poll worker.
We don't even work, right? Like they keep talking about, they're asking for recounts in Milwaukee and Dane County in Wisconsin or in Pennsylvania. We don't have machines in those jurisdictions. In fact, in Pennsylvania, in the 14 counties where Dominion machines were used, the president won 52% of the vote.
Did Dominion bribe Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, the Secretary of State, to throw this election to Joe Biden? Sidney Powell calls it a Dominion scam.
So the argument is the Republican governor of Georgia and the Republican Secretary of State of Georgia took bribes? No. First of all, no, that did not happen. Second, it doesn't sound even vaguely plausible. They're Republican elected officials. They're supporters of the president. Why would they want Joe Biden to be president? I mean, these are questions for them to answer, but it doesn't strike me as remotely believable.
So this leaves us with absolutely no viable evidence to overturn this election based on fraud, right? Now think about this. In Georgia, where they do use Dominion voting machines, they hand counted every vote and the votes matched the machines, right? Because obviously you have a paper ballot that the voter fills out, they look at, this is the ballot, They put it through the machine to count. But in a hand count, you're not counting what the machine said. You're counting the actual ballots. I don't see what the problem is in Georgia. They verified the Dominion voting machines are accurate, right? They counted 3 million votes. So Sidney Powell then started going after the governor of Georgia, who was a Trump supporter, who was a Trump loyalist, and the Secretary of State, almost alluding to that they're taking a bribe to help Trump lose Georgia? Now, we have to understand, one person illegally voting is a problem. They should be investigated, and that person should go to jail. If you illegally vote, you should go to jail. But if one person voted illegally out of 100 million votes, and you found one instance of voter fraud that doesn't change the outcome, then you really have nothing in the overall picture. You can show like, hey, there was a problem here, but would it change the outcome? No. So it would become irrelevant to who won the presidency, but it'd be relevant to say, hey, we have a problem here that we want to fix. This is what the Democrats were saying. Let's not forget, Hillary Clinton did say President Trump was an illegitimate president. And they also had some evidence for voter fraud. For instance, let's go back to 2016. Trump won the state of Michigan by about 10,000 votes. In 2008, John McCain got 216,000 votes in Wayne County. Now, Mitt Romney in 2012, he got 213,000 votes in that same county. Trump got 229,000 votes in Wayne County, a heavily Democratic county. Now, that was a difference of about 13,000 votes, enough to swing the election because he only won the state by 10,000. So Trump getting 13,000 more votes in Wayne County makes him president. Now, think about this. In Wayne County, Michigan, they actually found that they had more votes than voters. Suspicious? Hell yeah. Serious? Yes. But not enough to overturn the results of the election. Now, if Trump's team had anything close to this, I'd be totally on board. But they don't. And about the mountain of evidence and the mountain of affidavits signed under the penalty of perjury that supposedly is clear evidence of fraud, check out this clip of a judge who had to review all of these affidavits presented by the Trump campaign and see what happens.
I want to go back to what I asked you before. Your solicitation of witnesses yielded some affidavits from people, sworn affidavits, that you yourself determined are clearly false and spam, as you phrased it, correct? That's correct. The affidavits that you have submitted are the ones that you could not prove are false. So am I correct in saying you solicited affidavits, you received some you could prove were false, and you set those aside? The ones that you couldn't prove are false, you have submitted to the court.
Correct. They were submitted under penalty of perjury.
But the affidavits that you yourself found to be false were also submitted under penalty of perjury, right?
Correct. Improperly.
The fact that your process for obtaining these affidavits yielded affidavits that you yourself found to be false does not support a finding that this process generates reliable evidence. This is concerning. The fact that you solicited affidavits, some you know are false, some you don't know if they're false or not, and you exclude the ones that you can prove are false and submit the others. How is that a reliable process of gathering evidence? If your process for gathering declarations has yielded sworn statements under oath that your investigation has determined to be false, that doesn't give me any reason to believe that your process is one that generates trustworthy affidavits. It simply generated affidavits that you can't prove are not true. That's not the same as being trustworthy.
So yes, they turned in affidavits to the court that they knew were false. Another thing, they didn't verify any of those affidavits were true. They turned them in claiming that they couldn't verify any of those affidavits were actually false. Now, if I claim there were invisible pink unicorns changing votes from Trump to Biden that no one else can see, but I swear under penalty of perjury, it happened. There's no way you can prove that to be false, but you would submit that to a court? No, obviously not. So now the angle is, guess what? Sidney Powell was never a part of the team. She was always acting as some rogue agent looking at Venezuelan elections from 20 years ago. So why the hell was she on stage when we're doing the press? I don't understand. So really, what do you think? Was Sidney Powell just some rogue lawyer yelling false claims? Hell, even Trump now is telling people her claims are insane.
Trump allegedly expressed concern after the conference that Powell's claims were too outlandish, according to a source familiar with the discussions.
Even though he's been tweeting that Dominion is bad. Look at this tweet by Trump. Report, Dominion deleted 2.7 million Trump votes nationwide. Data analysis finds 221,000 Pennsylvania votes switched from President Trump to Biden. 941,000 Trump votes deleted. States using Dominion voting system switched 435,000 votes from Trump to Biden. Now they say these claims are unbelievable and too outrageous. Both right-wing media and left-wing media are saying the same thing. There's no evidence that there's any voter fraud that would change the outcome of this election. Comments below, let me know how you feel, and I'll check y'all next time.
Is because Sidney convinced everybody that she had super secret evidence that would prove it. And I kept telling people, nope, I know where this came from. I know what its origins are. I know what its connections are. I know enough about election law and elections, how elections work, that this is nonsense and will be easily disproven.